Economic Development Committee meeting to order. A quorum is present, so we'll move on to number 1, approval of minutes from 8/2/22. Do we have any additions, corrections, or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Awesome. So a motion by Alder Henke, a second by Alder Killian. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, they have been approved. So number 2 is discussion and possible action approving requests for proposals for 700 Grand Avenue. Randy.
Good evening, everybody. You have in front of you tonight a RFP for 700 Grand Ave, which consists of 5 different individual properties there. This has been something that we've been working on for some time among city staff, working through engineering, environmental, a number of different departments, just because there's a lot of different considerations with this site. And we want to make sure that when we're putting out these proposals, that whoever's viewing them and proposing on them, that they have an idea what they're doing so that we can get the best product at the end of the day. So we did a lot of work on this, specifically with engineering more than anything on this, just based on knowing that those are 2 high traffic volume roads, and it's been discussed about future improvements. So part of what we did, and you'll see there's an exhibit as part of the RFP, is we'll be reserving some additional right-of-way along Grand Ave that'll allow for future expansion there, and some potential pedestrian facilities as well. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
So I was really glad to see the extended pedestrian thing, and I also was really glad to see, some in the ranking about the local design personnel, consultants, et cetera. So I'm glad that took precedence in the scoring. So any committee questions? Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In terms of affordability, and I know that's important and something that's been discussed in multiple committees in terms of what the definition of that may be, I thought it might be beneficial if the committee perhaps tightens that up a bit so that, expectations from us and those submitting proposals, we'd have a better chance of those being consistent. And, often, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be, but often I think with the HUD definition, you're looking at about a third of income per month as kind of the top ceiling of what affordability might look like. And I think in the past, the city's used perhaps median household income to base that equation off of, which I think sometimes may work to use that broadly, but I think an improvement would be to actually look at the census block group data so that we could get an indication of the percentage of low-income residents with a higher resolution of data than using city-wide, and we could use a median household income based on the census block group rather than the city. And I think with this property, it sits on the border perhaps of 2 census block groups. I did look before the meeting, and the one I believe most of the properties in may be block group 2 of census tract 7, and the median household income in that block group is significantly lower than the $47,000 that we might see for Wausau in general. It would be $31,000 for that area, and the neighboring block group that it sits on is $28,000, the median household income. So if we were to use a range of $28,000 to $31,000 to base those affordability rates off of, then I think that would give us a more accurate definition of affordability with this project. And I think it tends to be received better by the public, because I think what separates revitalization from gentrification is that you're actually identifying and satisfying needs in the neighborhood, not creating developments where you're pricing the neighborhood out, which ultimately leads to displacement. So my thought would be, might the committee entertain some sort of equation based on the median household income of those census block groups? Thank you.
And I wonder too, is it something that we can use from the data that we got from our presentation last week on the Affordable Housing Commission, that we could maybe bake some of those numbers in there or ranges in there?
I think it might be possible to use it as evaluation criteria, but what we anticipate happening with this RFP is that it would be used for, it would be put forth for a WIDA tax credit scoring, and they have their own formulas that they use. So we could create a formula, but that doesn't mean that if we choose a project that doesn't fit the WIDA criteria, that project still wouldn't go forward. Because if WIDA doesn't score it properly or doesn't award it the scoring, because we selected something that our criteria doesn't necessarily fit with theirs, then we have nothing and then we start over. So we can, like I said, we can use it as a scoring criteria. You could create your own formula, but I've talked to the folks at WIDA a while ago about this, and they don't use a lot of local market data, especially down to the census tract, to score those kinds of things. And I would also note that, yes, we want to make sure that it's appropriate for the neighborhood, but we also want to, the point of new developments and new housing is to bring new people into a neighborhood as well. So it's not just, creating housing for the folks that are already there. It's to create new housing for new people in the community overall. So that's the long answer to, yes, we can create something new, but it doesn't necessarily mean that WIDA will, that it'll meet WIDA scoring criteria.
And perhaps maybe it's just to make sure that people who apply know it is being, evaluated using WIDA, criteria. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I actually do support us using the terminology of affordability in general terms. I think that we do need to use standard language and standard scales, though, because I think we do, like Liz said, we don't want to get in a position where we are creating parameters that are so narrow that no project fits, and then we sit again with this empty triangle. But that said, I think it's important that local governments not get in the business of dictating market rates, rent rates. Legally, we can't do anything with assessments, but, when we talk about, what we think something should rent for, it's up to the market and the developers to decide how to price their product, just like the markets decide how to price products on store shelves. That is not for us to dictate. So, I think we have to, we can request projects that are affordable, but I also think that we have to let the private sector price their product. And, they have to be able to pursue the market that they wish to pursue. And, if they need help from us and they need help, they need federal help or whatever, it's up to them to create a proposal that fills that requirement. But I think that we have to be careful of engaging in too much of what would be perceived as price fixing. So that's not a good realm for us to tread into. I think we can certainly create a climate where projects like that can be supported and thrive and take flight, but I think we have to be general in our request of the private sector and let them push that market. So I support the RFP, and I think we should go out and see what's possible on that corner. But I also think we should certainly not be too narrow in our scope as far as what affordable means. Thank you.
Any other comments or? Yeah, Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When companies invite public money, they invite the government into their business. That's just the reality of things, and if they don't like it, they can pay for their own projects themselves. That's the private sector, that's the free market. And we've seen to date what this model or philosophy of let's give the private sector a bunch of public money and just let them look out for the public good themselves hasn't worked out so well. And when we talk about affordability and affordable housing, a lot of the Wausonians I talk to don't even think, some of the projects we've labeled affordable housing are very affordable at all. And, also, inviting new people into areas, sure, that's fine. Welcome home to Wausau. We're a friendly community. But I will note that the government, which I've just heard doesn't like to interfere much, bulldozed half a neighborhood just west of this property, about a block and a half down. Those were affordable homes, and then tried to put up high-end development that no one there could really afford. So I think when we move ahead on these things, it's always an opportunity for improvement. And I think it's the government's job to safeguard the public good, not the private sector's margin. So I'd reiterate my sentiments. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? I guess another question that I have is, I know Section 42 housing is an option that is being pursued by Gorman down in the Battery area, right? Is that something that can also, is that an option for that property?
Potentially, I think it would depend on the responses that we receive. I will say that we have, the CDA is looking at a few project-based voucher, being able to do an RFP for that. But that can't be, those two things cannot be married. We can't do this RFP and that RFP kind of conjoined. And we need to do a few amendments at the CDA to be able to do that. So there are a couple different options that might be able to be had with this project, especially because WIDA tax credit projects generally take up to 4 years to develop. So we've got a lot of time to work with different options. Yeah.
Alder Rasmussen?
Thank you. I'll move that we approve the RFP and direct staff to move forward with the release.
Is there a second? Alder Hinkie? Any other comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so it'll be exciting to see some of the proposals that come through for that property. Although I'll be very sad to see the trees go. I hope they get relocated
We
to a
do
nice
have, I
place.
believe, yes, we have a lease that we have to look at with that.
All right, good. All right, so number 3 is discussion and possible action approving Third Amendment to River Life Condos Development Agreement. So Director Prodick.
Sure. So there's a memo included in your packet with several materials. I will also point out that Mitch Viget, the developer, and Tom Redens, who's with REI, are here today to answer any questions. The memo really goes through laying out the timeline of kind of where we started and where we are at right now. And I did include in the packet both the original plan and then an updated rendering. And I believe there are updated renderings of, 2 renderings of the proposed amphitheater as well. But really, everything that I have to say is laid out in the packet. If you have any questions for Mitch or Tom, they're...
All right, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. Not necessarily a question, but a comment. We've waited a long time for this project, and, we're up to the Third Amendment, and, I get that we've had some issues with the economy and supply and, getting things off the ground. But I think in spirit, we should have an understanding between us and the developer that, at some point, we want to see something going up here. And, we agreed that we were going to build condos together. We need to get it going. And, I'm hoping that we're not going to see a Fourth Amendment for a time delay. We've had enough. So we need to move forward. I like the new renderings. I appreciate that there's a little more green space. We like that, too. Still remain a little salty about the amphitheater, and I hope that you can work that out separately. Because that's what sold me on this project in the first place, but I also support housing options in this particular tier. And so I think we should move forward. I'll make a motion that we move forward with the amendment, with the understanding that we don't want to see many more of these.
Is there a second? So this is also part of the closed session discussion.
Okay.
So could,
If you feel there's more we need to know,
Yes.
and I'll withdraw my motion and we'll wait for the other
that would be great.
discussion. I wasn't clear if we even needed closed session with what we see here.
That would be
So,
awesome.
okay, let's save it then until we hear a little more.
Okay. Is there any other questions, comments? All right. So we will postpone more discussion on that until after we reconvene. So number 4 is the update on T-Wall Enterprises Foundry on Third Development Agreement.
And I don't have a lot for open session on this one. This is also agendized for closed session, but we do have a draft development agreement that we want to review with you. So whenever it's appropriate for a motion for closed session.
I would entertain a motion for a closed session. Does somebody want to?
I'll read it. I'll make the motion.
Awesome.
So I'll move that we go into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Paragraph 1, Sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session relating to an update and review of the T-Wall Foundry on Third Development and review and possible action on a third amendment to the River Life Condos Development Agreement.
Is there a second to that motion? Alder Wilkins, yeah. And then we do need a roll call vote, so Alder Rasmussen?
Aye.
Alder Henke?
Aye.
Alder Killian?
Aye.
Alder Lukens?
Aye.
And I say aye. So let's go to closed session, and then we will reconvene to take any action.